What is going on, everybody? In this video, I will be talking about the prestigious Heisman Trophy for college football. I'm going to be predicting the 10 players that I think will receive the most amount of votes by the end of the 2024 season for the Heisman Trophy. And my top 4 players are going to be the players that I think will ultimately be the Heisman Trophy finalists to end the season. And at the end of this video, I will give my prediction for who I think is going to actually win the 2024 Heisman Trophy. But let's start off with some of the guys that I think will be getting outside votes. And at number 10, I have Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava. I think Nico Iamaleava has one of the highest ceilings at the quarterback position in college football right now. He was highly recruited out of high school, and he honestly could have been ready to start over Joe Milton last season if you ask me. But he has waited his turn, and Nico had an impressive showing against Iowa in his first start last season, and he led Tennessee to a 35-0 win against Iowa. Tennessee has a pretty great receiving core heading into 2024, and I expect that Tennessee offense with Nico at quarterback to take a step forward. It should honestly be closer to what it was in 2022 when they had the #1 scoring offense in America. Tennessee has both wide receivers Squirrel White and Brew McCoy back, and they added a sleeper addition at wide receiver who is Tulane leading wide receiver Chris Brazzell. I think Nico Iamaleava has great offensive talent around him, and I expect a big year for Nico Iamaleava in 2024 and beyond. At number 9, I have Arizona quarterback Noah Fifita, and I have high expectations for Noah Fifita and that Arizona offense in 2024. Noah Fifita didn't start the first 3 games of last season, but he earned the starting job quickly for Arizona, and he became one of the best quarterbacks in the country last season. He passed for nearly 3,000 yards and 23 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions, and he did that as a freshman quarterback with just 10 starts. And his completion percentage was one of the best in the country at 72.4. Arizona also returns one of the best wide receivers in the country, Tetairoa McMillan. And I really think Noah Fifita is due to take a step forward in 2024. Everybody is talking about Big 12 quarterbacks Cam Rising and Jalen Daniels returning in 2024. And that is fair, but people need to keep an eye on a young quarterback like Noah Fifita, because I do think he will be the best quarterback in the Big 12 next season. He was very good only as a freshman last season, and he has great offensive talent surrounding him. Fifita should put up numbers in 2024, and I think Fifita finishes 9th in the Heisman voting by the end of next season. At number 8, I have wide receiver Luther Burden for Missouri, and I really think Luther Burden is going to go off in 2024. Missouri returns Brady Cook at quarterback and their top 4 wide receivers. This offense will be one of the best in the SEC, and I expect wide receiver Luther Burden to improve his numbers a lot more. He could easily be the best wide receiver in college football. The SEC is a stacked conference, and I think if Luther Burden puts up the right numbers against great SEC defenses, then he's going to receive some Heisman votes. Missouri has great offensive upside, and I honestly like Luther Burden to have well over 1,000 receiving yards in 2024, and I think it's going to be impressive putting up those numbers in the SEC conference. So I do have Luther Burden on here, and don't sleep on Luther Burden. At number 7, I have Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. I don't think Carson Beck will be a Heisman Trophy finalist in 2024. Anybody can make a case for him to win the Heisman Trophy outright, and I honestly would not argue against it. He is definitely a top 3 quarterback in college football, and Georgia could easily win the national championship next season. Carson Beck threw for nearly 4,000 yards as a first-year starter for that Georgia offense, and he was actually top 3 in the country last season for passing yards. And that was pretty impressive because Georgia is usually more of a run-heavy team. But to be honest, I don't think Carson Beck's numbers are going to take a step forward next season. Georgia lost a lot of weapons at wide receiver. They lost 3 of their top targets from last season, Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, and Rosamie Jackson to the NFL. And I think Georgia is going to rely a bit more on the ground game in 2024 than they did in 2023, with the new transfer running back from Florida. I don't think Carson Beck takes a step back, and Georgia should absolutely have one of the best offenses in the country. But Carson Beck was not a Heisman Trophy finalist last season, even with the incredible numbers he put up. And it's going to be tough for him to put up those same numbers in 2024. I do think he will absolutely be in the conversation to win the Heisman Trophy next season, and I have Georgia winning the national championship next season. But personally, I just don't see Carson Beck being a Heisman Trophy finalist. I think Carson Beck is going to be a quarterback that gets outside votes just like he did last season. At number 6, I have Miami quarterback Cam Ward, and I think Cam Ward is going to put up incredible numbers in 2024. He was 8th in passing yards last season, and he had a terrible team around him at Washington State. He actually got sacked 38 times, which was near the top of the country. Washington State's offensive line was atrocious last season, but he's going to have one of the top offensive lines in the ACC surrounding him at Miami. And Cam Ward is also very effective with his legs, so he should have some rushing yards and he should pass for 4,000 plus yards in 2024. Last year, Cam Ward was the guy that passed for 3,700 yards with lesser talent and a terrible offensive line. Miami has their top two wide receivers, Restrepo and George back, who combined for nearly 2,000 receiving yards last season, and Miami will be a much better team at the quarterback position in 2024. You also have a guy like Isaiah Horton who should take a big step forward, and they add 800-yard receiver Sam Brown from Houston. I really think Cam Ward could easily be a Heisman Trophy finalist, but I do think the Russian attack should be very good as well with Damian Martinez joining the team. So I do think that will take a bit of the burden off of that passing game, but Miami should still have one of the top all-around offenses in the country, and I think Cam Ward is going to be in the conversation to outright win the Heisman Trophy next season. For that to happen, Miami would have to have a great year and win the ACC, but I am expecting a big step forward from Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes. At number 5, I have Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. I expect Jackson Dart to take a step forward in 2024 with the offensive talent he has surrounding him. And I think Ole Miss relies a bit more on the passing game in 2024 than they did in 2023. The Russian attack should be good, but let's be honest, losing a guy like Quinshon Judkins was a pretty big loss. Ulysses Bentley Jr. will be good, and Rashad Amos and Henry Parrish Jr. are both sleeper additions at running back for Ole Miss. Ole Miss has a very deep backfield that is not getting talked about enough, but let's be real, none of them are on the same level as Quinshon Judkins. I still do expect the offense to take a step forward though. Jackson Dart is back, Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins are back at wide receiver, and they have one of the best returning tight ends in the country, Caden Pricecorn, back. They also added one of the most explosive playmakers in the SEC, Juice Wells, at wide receiver. The passing game should really take a step forward, and I think Jackson Dart is going to get a lot more reps in 2024, which means his numbers will go up drastically. And get this, Jackson Dart was top 25 in passing yards last season, and the only quarterback in the top 25 with less passing attempts than Jackson Dart was the Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels. So that's an interesting fact right there. Ole Miss has one of the top receiving corps in the country. Jackson Dart should take another step forward in 2024 as a senior. Jackson Dart is a legitimate contender to win the Heisman Trophy in my eyes because his reps should go up a lot in 2024, and that ultimately means his numbers will go up even more. But now we move on to my 4 Heisman Trophy finalists for the 2024 college football season. And this may be a surprise to some people, but at number 4, I have Ollie Gordon, the Oklahoma State running back. Last season, Ollie Gordon was the guy that ran for 1,700 yards, and he didn't even become the guy until week 4 of last season. He had back-to-back games where he ran for over 250 yards, which hadn't been done since Barry Sanders. I really think Ollie Gordon is going to have one of the best seasons we've seen from a running back in nearly a decade. I think he'll put up similar numbers to what Alabama running back Derrick Henry had in 2015. Now let's not forget Derrick Henry ultimately won the 2015 Heisman Trophy. I don't think Ollie Gordon will win the Heisman Trophy because there's just so much incredible quarterback talent heading into the season, but Oklahoma State returns all 5 starting offensive linemen, and they return their star running back Ollie Gordon, which is going to be scary for opposing defenses. I think this is a year where Ollie Gordon runs for over 2,000 yards, and I honestly think he will be a Heisman Trophy finalist. Ollie Gordon had 4 games last season where he ran for less than 75 yards, but he is going to be the most important piece to that offense in 2024, and he'll be ready to go as early as week 1. If he stays consistent all season, he will easily be a 2,000-yard rusher. And there's no saying how many rushing yards he can actually have with all 5 offensive linemen returning. Do not sleep on Ollie Gordon. He has a legitimate shot to be in the Heisman Trophy conversation if Oklahoma State has a good enough year. At number 3, I have Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. If Quinn Ewers doesn't miss any games to injury, I easily think he's a Heisman Trophy finalist and he could win the Heisman Trophy. Quinn Ewers missed 2 games to injury last season, and he really didn't have a good showing against Texas Tech coming off of injury. So his season was shortened a bit in 2023, but he had an incredible postseason in his games against Oklahoma State and Washington, and I think that was a glimpse of more to come in 2024. He was top 15 in passing yards last season, and only 3 returning quarterbacks in the Power 4 had more passing yards than him. He will definitely take a step forward in 2024, and I think he's going to take on a bigger leadership role for this Texas team, and I think he ultimately stays healthy and has a great season. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, and Silas Bolden round out an elite receiving room, and they will be one of the best receiving rooms in the country. Steve Sarkisian is an incredible offensive mind, and I think Texas will have one of the best passing attacks in the country, and they might have the best in the SEC. I expect Quinn Ewers to put up numbers in 2024, and I have him as a Heisman Trophy finalist. And this may be a surprise to some people, but at number 2, I have Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. I really think Jalen Milroe is going to be a surprise player in 2024 at the quarterback position. He will surprise a lot of people. The Alabama offense is going to look much different with Kalen DeBoer as head coach. Kalen DeBoer really helped develop Michael Penix Jr. into a great passer after the struggles he had had with injuries at Indiana. Let's not forget Michael Penix Jr. was more of a running quarterback at Indiana, but he stayed in the pocket 99.9% of the time at Washington, and he ended up passing for nearly 5,000 yards last season, which was the most in the country. And a lot of that you have to give credit to a guy like Kalen DeBoer. He really helped Michael Penix Jr. develop his game. And now Kalen DeBoer is going to be the Alabama head coach, and he will be helping a guy like Jalen Milroe. But Jalen Milroe is already an incredible athlete, and he ran for over 500 yards on the ground last season. And I really don't expect Kalen DeBoer to limit Jalen Milroe's ground game. I expect him to use that tool to his advantage, and I expect Jalen Milroe to become a more consistent passer as well. Similar to what I said about Jackson Dart, I expect Jalen Milroe to have a bunch more reps passing the ball because Alabama will not be as run heavy under DeBoer. Milroe got sacked 44 times last season. That number should go down. Milroe was a quarterback that averaged 10 passing yards per attempt last season, and that was actually near the top of the country for starting quarterbacks. Milroe's game will not be limited under Kalen DeBoer, and I am certain of that. And that's why I think Jalen Milroe is one of the most slept-on quarterbacks heading into the 2024 season. I really think he is going to have a big year under Kalen DeBoer, and I think he is going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist and finish second in the Heisman voting just like Penix did at Washington last season. And at number 1, I have Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel, and he is my prediction to win the 2024 Heisman Trophy. I really think it is going to be a copy and paste when we compare Dillon Gabriel to Bo Nix in terms of the numbers they put up at Oregon. Oregon added one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football and one of the best quarterbacks in college football, Dillon Gabriel. He'll have an offensive line that will be amongst the best in the country, and he'll have guys like Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Trayshawn Holden to throw to. Oregon might just have the best receiving room in the country next season, and Will Stein will be a second-year offensive coordinator. Bo Nix had 470 passing attempts in 2023, and he had 4,500 passing yards. Dillon Gabriel only had 384 passing attempts in 2023, and he also only had 3,600 passing yards, which was nearly 1,000 less than Bo Nix had, but he also had nearly 100 less passing attempts than Bo Nix had. Dillon Gabriel's passing attempts should go up in 2024, and he should take a big step forward. I really think Dillon Gabriel will have very similar numbers to what Bo Nix had, and I also think he'll have more rushing yards than Bo Nix had. I think Dillon Gabriel will pass for over 4,000 yards, and I think he runs for nearly 500 yards on the ground as well. And on top of that, I think Oregon is going to be one of the top teams in the country. I think all of the signs point to a Heisman Trophy year for Dillon Gabriel. So my prediction to win the 2024 prestigious Heisman Trophy is Dillon Gabriel. But anyways, you guys let me know down in the comments below who is your pick to win the 2024 Heisman Trophy. But that is going to do it for today's video. Let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing and also consider checking out my socials down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.